Welcome to another exciting and elucidating episode of the OmniTalk Ask an Expert series. I'm one of your co-hosts for today's interview, Chris Walton.
And I'm Ann Mazinga.
And we are the founders of OmniTalk, the fast-growing retail media organization that is all about the companies, the technologies, and the people that are coming together to shape the future of retail. And can you believe it? This is our last live LinkedIn event for 2023.
It's been a good year. We had some great events this year.
We really did. Well, I'm curious, how would you sum it all up as we get to the end of this year, as this is kind of our capstone interview that we have?
I think we started the year, right? This was the show me the money year. It was all about there's so much pressure on retail operators. You have inflation, shrink, supply chain, consumer preferences are changing by the second. But then as a result, we also saw some really cool investments and really cool developments in technology. And I think that's, obviously AI was one of the biggest ones. I feel like towards the end of the year, it was like every single conversation we were having across any of the content types was focused around AI and specifically around Gen AI. So I have to say that's really one of the hallmarks of 2023 that I think will go down in history. But I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I think you said it really well. Yeah, it's been this dichotomy of the pressures that are facing retailers, which we've talked about ad nauseum on our weekly podcast, but then also just some incredible technology advancements, particularly AI, like you talked about. So yeah, I think I would sum it up exactly like you did. And so without further ado, to help us kind of weave our way through that dichotomy is none other than OmniTalk's good friend, the CEO of North America for SES-imagotag, Philippe Bottine. He's here to give us his predictions on how all that confluence is going to play out here over the next year. And really, he's going to talk to us about how stores are going to continue to change in 2024. So Philippe, welcome back to OmniTalk. We were talking before we got started. This is your third or fourth time on our show, right?
That's right. Well, thank you for having me again and for being the last, episode of your season this year. I'm happy to be with you guys.
We're ending it with a bang, Philippe. We're very excited to have you. And I'm excited to hear your predictions, especially with all that SES has done in the last year. I'm excited to hear what you think is on deck. And I want to give our listeners a quick reminder before we get started. Those of you who are watching us live on LinkedIn, you can ask Philippe and his team any questions you want about the future of stores in the next year via the chat session window just to the right of your screen. So go ahead and do that at any time. Philippe, as Chris said, our conversation today is about really looking forward to next year, hearing your predictions directly from you and your experience. So I want to go back to something we talked about at the beginning. The retail context has been extremely tough. Definitely one of the hardest we've seen in recent decades. And inflation is still a big, big topic on the minds of consumers. Let's have you go for it. What do you think that we can expect from next year? Let's dive in.
2023 was a very challenging year. We've seen a lot of, inflation, shrink, changing customer behaviors, to your point, Anne. So, we've had to navigate through a difficult year, and looking at predictions in 2024 is not easy because
that's why you're doing it, not us. Yeah,
right. But it's a very fluid and dynamic environment out there. So we're, I think maybe we can start with inflation since we're touching on that. It's been very high in 23. We're kind of expecting it to slow down in 24, hopefully.
Right.
I mean, everybody's looking forward to it. It's probably going to have different dynamics depending on the industry. In grocery, we're probably going to keep seeing some 3-4% digits, while in some other industries it's probably going to flatten. So different dynamics per industry, but we'll see. It's definitely going to keep impacting the consumer.
Yeah. Well, and what are the retailers doing, Philippe? What have you seen them start to do to kind of combat that concerned consumer? How are they trying to change their retail operations to support that type of shopper?
Well, by providing maybe a better value to shoppers, that's one way of doing it. Changing assortment, optimizing their operations, inventory management, giving better pricing, better promotions to to consumers as well. So playing with everything they have at their disposal to try and mitigate the impact to the overall basket for shoppers.
Which includes being right priced at shelf too, which is I know something you guys specialize in, and being given the consumer the confidence that the right price is at shelf and that the retailer can actually manage those prices very simply and easily too.
We know a little bit about shelf edge indeed, but
yeah. Yeah, just a little bit. A skosh. Go ahead, Anne. You're going to say something.
What are the retailers doing, and what do you think they'll continue to do in 2024 to optimize their operations?
We're seeing in the States, for instance, we're seeing growing adoption of shelf edge technologies in order to support these pricing and promotion schemes, and making sure prices are accurate, promotions executed on time, whether better reflecting all the price changes that are happening through the supply chain as well. So those investments are happening. We ourselves we were lucky enough in 2023 to announce the expansion of our project with Walmart, for instance, in the US, because they're betting big on prices, and we're happy to be supporting them as part of this initiative. And we're seeing it across a lot of other grocers in the US as well, not just Walmart, but plenty of operators are investing in those technologies now.
Yeah, and I would say I think that's a good prediction on which to bet too, right? That there's going to be this marriage, right, Anne, of like I think that's what you're getting at too. This marriage of the pricing analytics with the shelf capabilities of digital pricing and what that affords both the retailer, the customer. But those two things together, really 1 + 1 = 3. And so I would bet too, and I have bet for quite a while, that we'll start to see more of that going forward. So, all right, let's shift to the second part that Anne brought up too, Philippe, in the beginning, which is just the growth in really cool and interesting technology, particularly by way of AI and in particular, generative AI. What can we expect in 2024 on the generative AI front in terms of how it will impact retail and retail store operations here in the future?
We have those conversations about Gen AI every day.
Do you?
And every
Do you
week.
really?
Yeah. This topic is on everybody's mouth at the moment, and we've been doing a lot of work ourselves on that as well. It's AI is really about how do you bring intelligence back into commerce? How do you apply intelligence to make better decisions in store, whether for associate or consumers? That doesn't really matter. But for associates, it's about really, we have all these IoT and all these technologies that are generating a lot of data in stores. But how do you turn this data into really actionable insights that are meaningful and that can be impactful for store operations? That's the hard part. And we think we're still, I think, at the beginning of those really meaningful insights. We're starting to see some really interesting, workforce management applications in order to better guide the work of associates. We're also starting to see some really cool stuff when it comes to influencing customer behaviors. But we're going to see a lot more of those going into 2024. In order to be able to make better educated decisions at the point of purchase. Right?
What are some examples of that? Can you tell us? Like, I'm curious on both sides of that. So like it sounds like there's some consumer facing elements there, as well as some applications towards how we're deploying sales staff inside of a retail operation. Like, what are some tangible examples you can share with us to that end in terms of the types of things you think we'll start to see?
Well, if we talk about the associate, maybe first, the AI models are sometimes generating, counterintuitive behaviors or requirements for stores. Let's say, if you've been an associate in a retail store for 20 years, and you go in an aisle to fix a gap, and if you see a fronting issue, you're going to want to fix it because it's part of your DNA. That's how you've been operating as a store associate. But the AI model might tell you to do something different based on value. Instead of going to fix a fronting issue, the AI may be telling you to go do something else that adds more value to the store. And so the introduction of those models, which are ROI based, value based, are going to generate quite a bit of change in terms of how operators need to behave in the stores, which might be counterintuitive. So it's how do we, making sure that we help them, go away from all this manual work that they used to do, which was based on intuition and guts, and make them do, work which is based on algorithms and, return on investment is going to be quite a bit of quite a significant impact for them.
We go back to what we said before about, the interaction of pricing analytics with the digital shelf pricing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And all that a digital tag can do right now, quite honestly, which is show promotions, show health attributes of products and all that kind of thing. I start to get my mind starts going crazy in terms of like, okay, you could be taking all this data that you're getting in real time from this collection of smart store devices in a store, and then actually be using those substrates as a way to communicate to your shoppers differently through generative AI and its use. And is my head in the right space with that, or am I going in a crazy direction?
No, I think you're going in the right direction. Let's imagine you're, so we talked about inflation. Everybody's on a budget, right? What if you could have a tool at your disposal that tells you how to run your grocery for under $50 based on a certain number of criteria? And your shopping list could be automatically generated from shopping behaviors based on a maximum budget you wouldn't want to overspend. Well, you can ask the AI to give you a list of recommended products to do exactly that. And so that's one way of helping, mitigate inflation for shoppers that are, on a budget. And, the AI would look at your past history, the type of food or ingredients that you want to have as part of your shopping journey, and they would give you the best recommended shopping list. So that's an interesting application that we're seeing out there, for instance.
Philippe, talk to us a little bit too. I mean, one of the things that we've seen in stores is not only applying AI to help make the consumer's shopping experience better, to understand, pricing accuracy, but also we've seen some applications like on some of the tags, you can also have like expiration dates. So you have a better idea of like how to more sustainably run your store. And do you see that in 2024 kind of translating into like the shopping? I love the shopping list example of like, how do you get your shopping list under $50 for the week? Do you see some of those connections being made now that retailers have visibility into like when a set of, when a display is set to expire, and how do you kind of work that in as this main brain that's running the smart store?
Well, that's another great example. If you can get this kind of granularity in terms of expiration dates and potentially do day part pricing or modify your pricing based on due dates, you can start doing some really, really interesting promos or, intraday promotion based on expiration. So these are also things that potentially CV could help with. Because computer vision could potentially help in, figuring out, improving waste, making sure that whatever leftovers you have after 5 p.m. you can discount in order to provide, eliminate waste on the retailer, provide a better price for the consumer. Those are interesting use cases, right?
What's going to change in 2024 for the retail associates' day-to-day life that you see happening?
For the retail associate, most of those tags are invisible. AI or CV and IoT, they're theoretical, right? What's really impactful for the retail associate is when you turn those technologies into really impactful actions that can transform their day-to-day. Eliminate some of the tedious manual work of doing gap scans, of doing price changes, of doing, expiration date, tracking in stores. And, it helps them, with a purpose, because now they can be directed to doing work that is value added instead of work for which the value is harder to quantify. And so I think it kind of elevates at the end of the day the associate and NPS results that you can expect from your staff, because instead of not knowing the purpose of what you're doing, then you can inform them that the work that they're doing on a daily basis is actually impacting the P&L. And so, I think it really transforms the way they can potentially perceive their work in the stores, right?
We've seen firsthand from, again, being in some of the stores that you all have deployed in, that it's cutting down work from 3 people taking 3 days to do pricing adjustments. Now it's one person taking a look around the store for 3 hours just to verify that those prices are accurate, that the tags are all displaying as they should be, which is a huge amount of time. And you have the unique position of kind of seeing some examples of what that's unlocked for the retail associates. And I wonder if you can share, what have your customers seen already that those retail associates have been enabled to do in the store because they have that extra time? And what do you hear from clients that they're hoping will happen in 2024, or other things that those retail associates will be deployed to do now that they have the time away from these mundane tasks like label changes?
Well, so typically those technologies, they allow time saving, which are reinvested in the business, right? And the reinvestment in the business is meant to serve clients better most of the time. So serving the client better can be done in many different ways, right? It can be making sure that there's no out. Because when you walk in the store, you don't want to be running in an out of stock situation. You want to make sure that you also want to be able to guide clients to the right places in the store. So findability of products is something that is very time consuming in a store. The bigger the store, the more the findability becomes an issue. Right. And so associates can also be used to help clients with findability quite a bit. And so, these are examples of, how time is being reallocated in the store to better serve clients. Yeah.
So better store experiences ahead, Chris, for us as consumers in 2024.
Yeah.
Someone will be able to help me find the breadcrumbs.
Right. Well, I don't know, Ann. Let's not get extreme here. You finding breadcrumbs, that sounds challenging. But I mean, the bigger point to me, the big nugget that you just dropped there, which is why I love doing this show, because I never know when these nuggets are going to happen for me, is the point that you made, about generative AI is going to impact the store level workforce too. It's not just going to be about helping the guy in creative at X retailer do their job better, to put out more social media posts and whatnot. It's actually going to, almost under the covers, if I heard you, Philippe, correctly, it's going to enable the store associate to work faster, to work better, to work more efficiently. And that's a big change that I don't think I really quite was cognizant of until you articulated it that way. And it pivots how I now am thinking about, okay, generative AI for the store field level employee and trying to make their jobs easier. Just to your point, their NPS will go up. They are the best advocates for the brand that you have. And they're also, quite honestly, it's been tough to staff them of late too. And so it's probably smart for the retailer to invest on the AI front here for that purpose than it is relative to others when I think about it in that context. How would you fill in the blanks to what I just said?
I think you said it very well. We often hear about Gen AI as a creative component, to your point, but I think the application of AI to improve the day-to-day of retail operations is something which is going to be highly critical going into next year, especially with labor shortages, labor costs going up. It motivates retailers a lot to go find creative solutions to those issues. Right?
Yeah. And I know when I use it, for example, like it's actually improved my quality of life just in my day-to-day of working. Like I said to Ann the other day, I was like, Jesus, Ann, I got more time on my hands now because I'm using generative AI to make myself better, to enhance my performance. I've always said it's a performance enhancing drug. But okay, Philippe, so there's one element that I know is near and dear to your heart, and it's near and dear to Ann and I's hearts too. And it came up a little bit, but it didn't come up as overtly as I probably Ann and I both would like, and I know you would probably like too. Is this issue of sustainability? Is this a year that we start to see retail becoming more sustainable? And what are your thoughts overall on that concept?
Well, I'm glad we touched on that because, yeah, it is close to our heart indeed. A lot of the technologies and solutions we've talked about are meant to, create a more human-centered commerce, more sustainable commerce. But there's a theme underlying everything we're doing, which is indeed very much which has sustainability at the heart of it. There's already been a lot of work honestly in 23 on that, but not enough. And so we need to keep on pushing in order to keep it at the top of the agendas of our clients, of associates, of customers, whether it's through, waste reduction programs, inventory management, better inventories management, developing and, helping develop local e-commerce or, so some of the topics that are at the top of our agenda for sure. And hopefully our clients too.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about before, I think I wrote last year too, the store is really the center of a sustainable retail ecosystem at the end of the day. When you think about all the combination of technologies from a smart store standpoint that can get deployed to the degree that we're talking about, we're starting to see that as we've discussed already throughout the length of this show around some of those benefits. But I wonder, what are some concrete examples that you think we'll start to see in market of retail operations becoming more sustainable at the store level in 2024?
Well, we can pick a couple examples. Maybe starting with what we call local e-commerce.
Okay.
Using stores as the last node of the distribution network in order to where people do the picking in order to serve online orders. Whenever someone is facing a situation of having to build a distribution center versus leveraging existing assets such as stores in order to do the last mile fulfillment, one option is more sustainable than the other for sure. Mm-hmm. Leveraging the store, making sure that they are able to do the fulfillment, the picking in a very efficient way is something that is that retailers are increasingly realizing. There's been a lot of DCs manufactured lately, but there has been also a lot of those projects which end up being more complex than expected, more costly than expected, versus potentially investing in stores and making sure that they're the assets that are leveraged to do the local e-commerce portion.
That's all stuff that's going on behind the scenes. How do you see the sustainability measures that some of these retailers are going to be taking in the next year being shown to their consumers?
You could propose delivery options which are based on sustainability. Do you want to be delivered in an hour? Do you want to be delivered in one day? Do you want to be delivered once a week? Obviously, for perishables, that doesn't necessarily work, but there are many other e-commerce options where, grouping products in single deliveries instead of multiple deliveries can be offered as an option towards more sustainable, consumption.
That's a great point. I never thought about that too. Like even like curbside here in the US, because like I think in the US, there's like this balance between curbside versus fulfillment out of DC or fulfillment out of the store, shipping from the store. Curbside has a lot of benefits here in the US, which we just covered on another recent podcast too. You could actually brand curbside as the more sustainable alternative, and like, hey, come get your goods while you're picking up your kid, while you're doing these other things on that same trip, on that same journey. So you're not using gas or requiring us to use gas or non-sustainable fuels to get the products to you on their own as an individual.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear too. It's just like the awareness portion of it, like from the labels that I'm picking up, like, am I going to buy this box of pasta or this box of pasta, and just being able to clearly see as a consumer, like this one was more sustainably produced, or this meets my goals personally of what I want to do as a sustainability effort with this retailer all the way down to what you were just talking about, Chris and Philippe, about how I'm choosing to get those products fulfilled. I think that seems like that will become more front and center in 2024.
Yeah, and waste reduction is also a big component. Still in everything that is perishables. How do you leverage CV in order to make sure that you reduce your waste at the end of the day? In the bakery section, it's like, how do you monitor in real time your production versus your demand in order to end up at the end of the day with as little overstock as possible. CV allows you to do that pretty easily nowadays, and it's a great way to help on the sustainability aspect of waste as well.
Yeah. And the other thing I love about computer vision too, is it tells you what the stock is actually in the store, which when you start talking about perishables and grocery, that's always a tricky question. But, in theory, if you deploy the camera technology right, you can get a better sense of that to then link it up to the demand forecasting tools that you're utilizing to, again, make 1 + 1 = 3 and create an actual impact on the amount of waste or products that you're throwing out every day in the retail operation. Is that right, Philippe?
Yep, exactly right. Because what I mentioned on bakery is applicable to any, fresh section in the store. So it works in delis, it works in produce, or it works in anywhere else.
Yeah, moldy strawberries, which is always my favorite when running a store. Got to check the bottom of those strawberries, and you never know what you're gonna find.
You never know. And there's nothing worse than coming home and realizing that those strawberries are moldy.
There's really not, actually. That is kind of the disappointment in the morning when you wake up to that yogurt and then there's the moldy strawberry. But all right, Philippe, well, any closing words, thoughts, final predictions here for 2024?
Again, it's a volatile environment out there, so it's a difficult exercise you had to go through. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
Well, we'll be seeing you right away in the new year too. We'll be seeing you out at NRF. Why don't you share with the audience a little bit about where they can find you if they're going to be out at NRF or afterward?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So for all of those traveling to NRF, come to our booth. We'll be happy to host you. And otherwise, if you're not coming, you can find me on LinkedIn, no problem.
Thank you so much. That wraps up today's interview. We hope you enjoyed what is our final 2023 interview of the year with SES-imagotag's Philippe Bottine. This past year has surely been a year that introduced us to new technologies like generative AI, and hopefully today's conversation inspired you, as it does us, about how 2024 could be a year of putting those technologies to work in a positive and more human-centered way. Thanks to all of you who joined us live, and whether you watch this interview live or are listening in later, as always, be careful out there in 2024.